journey, the process of our unfoldment is generally termed as seeking rather than searching. I hope you have come across this usage in spiritual discussions. It is always termed as seeking and not searching. What is the difference? I wonder if you have thought about it. You see, in seeking, what you are looking to find out, you know that it is somewhere there. But searching, you don't know where it is. When you need to find something and you don't have no clue, what you do a Google search, isn't it? You don't know where it is going to come from. But seeking is slightly different from searching. In seeking, there is somewhere in the depth of our being, we know that what we want is out there. We just need to locate it. So that is why spiritual journey is generally called seeking. Okay. So, and the solution to all our difficulties in life is recommended by the scriptures as the knowledge of Atma. And you must be knowing what Atma definition Patanjali has given. It is given in the second chapter, NSSA, if you want to abbreviate it, Nitya, Shuchi, Sukha, Atma. These are just some words for us right now, but they must go into our blood and bones and all that, so that we can take the daily benefit of it in our daily interactions. So in spirituality there is no sin in repetition, isn't it? So that this idea gets etched into your brain. So this Nitya Shuchi Sukha Atma, as an introduction, I would just like to recapitulate what we have discussed. So the definition of this word called Nitya is that it should be always there. Okay, so the definition in Sanskrit, it is kala traye api tishtati. That it exists in all three times. Kala traye api tishtati. What are the three times? Hmm? Lunchtime, dinner time, not that time. It is
Present, past,
present,
future.
past, and future, isn't it? So the three times are present, past, and future. So Nitya or your Atma is that which exists in all three times. Okay. So with that definition in mind, when we say I or Atma, or when I say I, we generally refer to it as our body, isn't it? I am sitting, I am listening, or I plan to sleep, I am shaking my head, all that. So when I say I, we generally refer to the body, isn't it? So can the with the definition of Nitya in mind, can you put it, or can you assign it to the body? Was the body ever there? No, isn't it? You were born in maybe 20 or 30 years ago. Before that, before 1970, let us say, you were not there. I mean, this body was not there, isn't it? So this body also came somewhere in between, and it, from the food that our parents took, it grew with the food, and it is staying sustained on food, and after that it will go back to the elements, isn't it? So this body is also something that just bubbled up in between, and it will go afterwards. So by the definition, I can say that etc., isn't it? So I has, if you analyze it, has two meanings. One is our general ideas, body, mind, etc. And there is a deeper meaning that we generally don't see it. Hmm. That we can say we have a common knowledge of I, that is Samanya Jnanam we have, but something more is there. That is what we are studying in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Vishesha Jnanam we don't have. So Samanya Jnanam we have, but Vishesha Jnanam we need to learn from the scripture. So what is that Vishesha Jnanam? It is that there is something in me, when I say I, that is constant in all my experiences, isn't it? I went to LKG, I went to school, I went to college, uh, then I quit, then I went for a job, then that was boring to me, then I joined yoga. All these experiences are there in our awareness, isn't it? You are aware of all these experiences, but what is common in all of them? The body changed, because that little baby that was adorable and lovable to everybody, that baby is gone, isn't it? Now everybody hates you. I'm just kidding. But that body has changed. That little baby girl has gone, or boy has gone. The teenager has come. Then you will be middle aged and all that. So the body keeps on changing, but that essential you who knows all these changes, that is still there, isn't it? Because you remember all those experiences, isn't it? First day of college and all that, isn't it? I hope you remember. It is good to remember. You don't remember. Okay. Somebody has said, a person who doesn't remember his past has no future, isn't it? So we must remember how miserable we are to rocket into happiness, isn't it? So it is good to remember our past, where we come from, and all that. Okay. So in and through all these experiences, that fundamental me who is knowing all this is still there, isn't it? Still it is there. And even if I go to sleep, it is still there. How do you know, Swamiji? When I sleep, I don't have any experiences. But maybe at 10 o'clock or 6 o'clock, whenever you wake up, who is saying that I slept very well? You're saying, isn't it? You remember that you had a good sleep, isn't it? So though you don't see everything, everything is just black and dark, but you remember that you slept well, isn't it? That happiness of sleep you remember, isn't it? So even when the mind is switched off or in flight mode, if I may put it that way, even when the mind is not functioning, even when the sense organs are not functioning, there is something essential in you that doesn't change. Do you agree with what I'm saying? I don't like people who readily agree. That's also, I should say. You have to analyze it and then uh, answer me. Okay. So there is something existential in me that doesn't change even after all the heartbreaks and all the uh, experiences, isn't it? So that fundamental me, it is what is Patanjali is calling Nitya. It doesn't change. Tomorrow you may go. Why tomorrow? Even in between the session, you may forget. I mean, you may go to sleep. So even when you sleep, that is still there, isn't it? When you wake up, everybody is gone, and oh, I had a good sleep. You remember that, isn't it? So even when you sleep, in sleep, your parents are gone, your job is gone, your yoga certificate is gone, everything is gone, isn't it? But still, you want to go there, isn't it? Whenever you are bored, you want to go there, isn't it? So there is something fundamentally dear to me and gracious and beautiful in me that I always want to reach. That is what Patanjali is pointing out as Nitya. There is something permanent in you that doesn't change. So, by logic, if from the absence of the body till now it is there, it has been there. So, after the body goes, also it will be there, isn't it? Because the body, whether it changes or not, doesn't get affected. Swami, that you are pulling my leg. That I don't think is possible. Our logic dictates that, but Patanjali says it is there. There is something permanent in you. So when I say I, there are two meanings. One is Samanya Jnanam, that everybody knows. I exist. I am a doctor, engineer, etc. But Vishesha Jnanam, that I am permanent in and through all these experiences. That is Vishesha Jnanam that we must get from our scriptural study, Patanjali Yoga Sutra or and all that. So it is even when you are in a dream, when you are in a dream, then also you are you, isn't it? You may dream that you are a millionaire or a leper or whatever it is. Last day I had a dream that I got cancer. Hmm. And knee cancer. And then I woke up, nothing is there. Then I went back to refreshed myself and went back to sleep, isn't it? So, in and through all these experiences, in the dream also, you are you, isn't it? So, that fundamental you doesn't change. It does. There are three experiences that we have in life. What are they? Awake, waking experience, Jagrat Avastha, and then we go to sleep, deep sleep, that is Swapna, I'm sorry, Sushupti Avastha, deep sleep. And the third one is in between, some flashes of memory come here, mixed up here and there, elephants flying and all that. That is called a dream, isn't it? So three experiences only we have. Outside these three, we don't have anything else is in life, isn't it? So three avasthas, three states of awareness. Swapna, uh, Sushupti, and Jagrat. So, but you who are fundamentally aware of all these, that is permanent, he says. It's not rocket science. It's actually what we all experience. I'm just pointing it out to you. Okay. So avasthatraya sakshi is Atma. All experiences are witnessed by Atma or us or we, isn't it? So okay. So there is a argument, especially when you're teachers and you represent this science to everybody, you will have to discuss with all kinds of people. So there are two different views about this Atman or this awareness or consciousness that you are. One view is given by modern science, and the other is our Indian Shastras. Two views are there. Okay. So, what does modern science say? Modern science says that consciousness is a very recent phenomenon. That matter, you know the story, isn't it? They have bored you enough in class. Big Bang happened, and everything. It was a hot soup, and it mixed around all the time, and sudden and some things cooled down, and planets were formed, and algae and amoeba and all that. And sometime in between these compounds, hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, and they all formed compounds, and they evolved into single cellular life. Then that being became aware, and then it multiplied and became what you are today, isn't it? I hope I am not boring you with too much science. Okay. And so the modern science view is that matter is the fundamental and consciousness evolved out of it. Okay, like you put pan and betel leaf and white lime, green betel leaf and brown pan and chew it and spit it, and red some ugly thing will come, isn't it? So consciousness is something like different things got mixed up, and somehow beings are now conscious. So consciousness is a product of matter. Okay, so that is a modern science view. We cannot negate that, but there are some very fundamental questions that they refuse to answer. First of all, how did that Big Bang happen? Who put it there? That we don't know. What was the initial spark for it? That we don't know. What is the material cause of it? We don't know. Who kickstarted it? That we don't know. So there is a lot of assumptions that they don't answer. So every theory has these kind of problems. Every theory begins with a certain assumptions, isn't it? So their assumption is that everything started from nothing. So there was nothing there, void, or what they call a singularity in science. So from singularity, everything kick-started. So everything came from nothing. That is their basic argument, isn't it? I hope you agree. That in our science, in our Indian language, that is called asatkarya vadam. That is, it everything came from asat, nothing. Not, but that is not our experience, isn't it? You cannot make something out of nothing. Listen, if I give you some nothing, nothing you already have. Can you make me some laddu or jalebi or something? No. You have to go to the supermarket and buy things and make it, isn't it? So you cannot make something out of nothing. That is our general experience. So and those assumptions are also just for the sake of assumption they have made it. So Asatkarya Vadam is not something that Indians generally accept or Indian sciences generally accept. But we can keep it there because their science and technology is very convenient. You and I are talking because of science and technology, isn't it? So let us have that, but our fundamental position should be clear. That is not Asatkarya Vadam. Okay, then what do you propose? So what we propose is uh, in Sankhya, that which we are studying, Sankhya and Yoga are the same fundamental principles, isn't it? In Sankhya, what they say is matter has always been there. Okay, and consciousness has always been there. Two things, Prakriti and Purusha. So these things are permanent. So then what happened? Matter went into a very subtle form, which is not visible, even before space and all that. Then Big Bang happened, then blah, blah. And then that consciousness, which is already there, it manifested through that matter. So that is, at least we have some fundamental ground to stand on, isn't it? There we don't have anything. We have nothing to stand on. There are some fundamental assumptions which we don't have any answer. So Sankhya's solution is that matter is permanent and consciousness is also permanent. I hope that is okay with you. So these fundamentals you have to be very clear. Okay, otherwise when you discuss or dialogue with some experts, then you will be you will not have any clarity on what you're talking about. Okay, so let this be clear. So okay, so that is modern science has a very powerful argument. Okay, which the whole world is following, and you have another powerful argument because they don't have all the answers and we have at least some answers. So when two equally good arguments come together, what do? The argument will go on and on and on, isn't it? Debate will never end. So then what do? When two equally good arguments come together, what you can only do is, as Shankaracharya says, you can go with your gut feeling, as they say, what your heart says, isn't it? So he he says, Shankaracharya deals with a different branch of study altogether. But I am saying that when you are in a confusion, when two arguments look equally good, you have to choose your gut feeling. And what is your gut feeling? That our gut feeling is for our Indian scripture. Why? Because what is the ultimate end value of the modern scientific theory? That you are a tiny speck of dust floating in the vast cosmic space, and you came from your parents, and after that you will die. Tata bye bye. That's it. So you have no other permanent existence or no reason to be happy or nothing. Isn't it? After all your PhDs and degrees, you finally proved LHS equal to RHS. Thus proved that I am miserable. So the end value is gone, isn't it? Your whole purpose of study is lost, isn't it? It is a self-defeating enterprise, isn't it? You prove that you are nothing, isn't it? You came from nothing, you go into nothing, nothing. So, but so that is the end value. Would you like to be that? Would you like to be a nothing, or would you like to be something? What appeals to you? That is what Shankaracharya is asking you. So, my taste or my appeal is that in Indian sciences, they say that I am permanent, I am consciousness, and I am permanent. So, and I can handle life with this understanding that everything is permanent. So, I don't have to particularly do anything. I can just relax and have fun with my life. Oh, so would you like to choose that? Or would you like to prove that you are nothing? So, this clarity you should have. Whatever you want, you can choose. Okay, I leave that to you. So, so this you must remember when you discuss with scientists and as yoga teachers, you must remember this. Both of you viewpoints are powerful, but I choose this. I You can follow those the Einsteinian Newtonian theories. I prefer this. Okay, so that clarity you must have. So when you have this clarity, you don't have any problem with science and technology, isn't it? When somebody says no, your yoga is wrong, okay, you tell me how what better solution you have. You have that clarity to ask such questions, isn't it? So so we are at an advantage, isn't it? So whatever science and technology that you developed, that I will use comfortably because it is all prakriti, I can use it, and I am permanent and happy also. So do you have a solution for that? No, then shut up. So we can use all the comforts of modern science, and also we can use the spiritual happiness of our science. So we are trying to bring a dialogue between both of them. Is that okay? Is that too much for you? Okay. Some of you look already tired, so that's why I'm asking you. Okay. So, Yoga Sutra or our Indian science gives a vast arena for us to discuss with experts and take the best of everything. So, we are always the winners, isn't it? So, we don't need to be shy. We don't need to shy away from modern science. And we have all the freedom to discuss with anybody and everybody. Somebody may say, you are a useless person, you are doing some yoga asana, and that doesn't do anything, isn't it? Okay, that also is fine because we have nothing to prove. We are already Nitya Shuchi Sukha Atma. I don't have to prove anything to you, isn't it? So that advantage we have. I hope that makes sense to you. So this is why in our culture, this not initiating ourselves into knowledge is very important. Hmm. That is why in some communities they have a big Upanayana ceremony where you go to the guru and start learning these sciences, isn't it? So guru gives you a secret mantra. They put a curtain there, and the guru and the student will go in between, and guru gives a mantra, and that is how the spiritual studies start, isn't it? Nowadays, a third person will also be there. Who is that? Cameraman, isn't it? So. Uh, that is okay, but still the tradition is like that. Guru gives you the freedom to express yourself in this area of study. Okay, so that is how, that is our second birth. So a yogi is called a dvija in our tradition. Dvija means a person who has two births. One birth is from your mother's womb, and the second birth is when you're initiated into culture by a guru, isn't it? So that is your second birth. So all of you have now second, this is your second birth because you're studying something uh, exciting, isn't it? So this is your second birth. Okay, so with this idea, so we have to have this clarity about what we are and what we have the leisure to explore. Okay, so I hope that introduction uh, brings some clarity to you. So the Patanjali Yoga Sutra discusses its topic in four chapters, as you know. The first one is a chapter on meditation. I'm sorry, Samadhi Pada, where Asampraknyada, Sampraknyada, everything was explained, isn't it? The purpose of meditation uh, was explained to you. And the second chapter made you competent to meditate. That is, your daily life should be in a smooth way so that on the mat you can meditate easily, isn't it? So values were given: ahimsa, be cheerful, santosham, and all that. Ahimsa, satya, asteya, blah, blah. Okay. So when you follow all that throughout your day, your whole day is made and you can easily jump into meditation. Okay. So second chapter gives you a uh, daily practice of meditation. Okay, and the full knowledge of the universe, isn't it? 24 and 25 tattvas and all that, the architecture of the universe, as we discussed. So uh, in the, I'm comparing our science to modern science once again. In modern science, even if you are a completely useless person in life, you can still score marks and get your certificate, isn't it? You But in Indian sciences, there is a certain involvement from the student also, isn't it? It is both knowledge and practice, isn't it? Unless you practice, you will not understand what I'm talking about, isn't it? So it involves you. It is a self-transforming science. Transformation it brings. Other science doesn't bring you any transformation. You can be a drinker, a smoker, a useless guy, and still get full marks, isn't it? So, like some of our college seniors, they are completely useless people, but they can score, isn't it? So there is no transformation. There is no inspiration. There is no excitement. Here, it gels into our daily life and makes you the best, isn't it? So that is the difference. One more difference between Indian sciences and Western sciences. Okay, so that is why in the second chapter, full practical discussions are there: ahimsa, satya, asteya, dhyana, pranayama, all that. Okay, so a knowledge without practice is a burden, isn't it? It's just sitting there. I have to study Yoga Sutra also. I have already studied many things. Now I have to study this nonsense also, isn't it? So unless you practice it, knowledge is a burden, isn't it? And practice alone without this knowledge is also a problem, because there are a lot of yogis, there are a lot of new age yoga schools and all that. They keep on practicing, and the gurus tell the students, if you want a certificate, come and massage my feet, make me a hot cup of tea, isn't it? A lot, I'm not joking, a lot of serious students are wasting away in ashrams and temples and spiritual centers all over the world because they have no clarity as to what to do. Isn't the gurus don't teach any scripture? If they teach, they will be unemployed, isn't it? So somebody has to massage your feet and make your hot coffee. So they don't teach. So that is why I am giving you all these of the nuclear launch codes, as they say. I am giving you all the secrets because anyway, I don't expect any massaging from you. So I have nothing to lose, isn't it? So that is why I am giving you all the secrets. So that is why when you learn from somebody, you have to question them, and you have to question, sir, who is your guru? Is he a competent acharya? Is he from the tradition? Who is his guru? Who is his guru? Guru. You have to check the sampradayam, isn't it? The tradition should be there, isn't it? So unless you are learned from a competent traditional teacher, you are at a risk, he says. Okay, so that also is one very important thing that we have to remember. Otherwise, you will waste your life pursuing not knowing what you want. So knowledge without practice is useless, and practice without knowledge is a waste, isn't it? So both you have to remember. Okay, so that is why second chapter is very important: knowledge and practice. Third chapter told us about the spiritual tools to excel in life, how to use your meditation and these values to excel in your area of expertise. Okay, Vibhuti, how to become a legend, as they say, Vibhuti. And the fourth chapter now delineates you from that material success. Don't let success get into your head. Your real goal is spiritual well-being, your happiness, isn't it? So focus on that, says Patanjali in the fourth chapter. Okay, I hope that is a satisfactory recapitulation of what we have discussed. So let us quickly read the sutras once. If one of you could join, we can go at it. अथ चतुर्थपादः कैवल्यपादः जन्मौषधी. Is anybody reading?
Sir, shall I?
Hari Om. जन्मौषधी.
Janmaushadhi.
मंत्रतपः.
Mantratapah.
समाधिजाः सिद्धयः.
समाधिजाः सिद्धयः.
जात्यन्तरपरिणामः.
जात्यन्तरपरिणामः.
प्रकृत्या पुरात्.
प्रकृत्या पुरात्.
निमित्तम् अप्रयोजकम्.
निमित्तम् अप्रयोजकम्. प्रकृतीनां
वर्णभेदस्तु.
वर्णभेदस्तु.
ततः क्षेत्रिकवत्.
ततः क्षेत्रिकवत्.
निर्माणचित्तानि.
निर्माणचित्तानि.
अस्मितामात्रात्.
अस्मितामात्रात्.
प्रवृत्तिभेदे.
प्रवृत्तिभेदे.
प्रयोजकम्. चित्तमेकम् अनेकेषाम्.
चित्तमेकम् अनेकेषाम्.
तत्र ध्यानजम् अनाशयम्. कर्मा शुक्ला कृष्णं योगिनः त्रिविधम्
इतरेषाम्.
As I said, when you say these Mahaprana sounds, some spit should fall, isn't it? Some people will get offended, but that's okay. Tatastad vipaka anugunanam eva abhivyaktihi vasananam jati desha kala vyavahitanamapi anantaryam smriti samskarayoho ekarupatvat tasamanaditvam cha ashisho nityatvat hetuphala ashraya alambanaihi samgrihitatvat eshamabhave tadabhavaha. It is esham abhave. Okay, sangrihitatvad plus esha. So that is why it is joined desham. Sangrihitatvad plus esham. So it becomes desham. Okay. So when we split it, we have to say it sangrihitatvad esham. Okay. We'll read it that once again. Hetu bhala ashraya alambanaihi sangrihitatvad esham abhave tadabhavaha अतीतानागतं
अतीतानागतं
स्वरूपतो अस्ति
स्वरूपतो अस्ति
अध्वभेदात्
अध्वभेदाद्
धर्माणां
धर्माणां
ते व्यक्तसूक्ष्माः
ते व्यक्तसूक्ष्माः
गुणात्मानः.
गुणात्मानः.
One more rule in Sanskrit, that when you write something one line, if there is a visarga, that two dots, aha and all that, if that comes in between, you can, when you write as a poem or a, what is it, a sutra or a song, you can skip that. In the visarga which is in between, you can skip, but the last one is compulsory. Okay, so when I say vikta sukshmaha, when you, in the sutra, it is, the visarga is not there, but in the, when you split it and say, you have to say it. Okay, and just a tip for your understanding. Te vyakta sukshmaha
ते व्यक्तसूक्ष्माः
गुणात्मानः
गुणात्मानः
परिणाम एकत्वात्
परिणाम एकत्वात्
वस्तुतत्वं
वस्तुतत्वं
वस्तुसाम्ये
वस्तुसाम्ये
चित्तभेदात्
चित्तभेदात्
तयोर्विभक्तः
तयोर्विभक्तः
पन्थाः
पन्थाः
न च
न च
एकचित्ततन्त्रं वस्तु
एकचित्ततन्त्रं वस्तु
तदप्रमाणकं
तदप्रमाणकं
किं स्यात्.
किं
I'm sorry,
स्यात्
तदा किं स्यात्
तदा किं स्यात्
तद्
तद्
उपराग अपेक्षित्वात्
उपराग अपेक्षित्वात्
चित्तस्य
चित्तस्य
वस्तुः
वस्तुः
ज्ञाताज्ञातं
ज्ञाताज्ञातं
सदा ज्ञाताः
सदा ज्ञाताः
चित्तवृत्तयः
चित्तवृत्तयः
तत्प्रभो
तत्प्रभो
पुरुषस्य
पुरुषस्य
अपरिणामित्वात्
अपरिणामित्वात्
न तत्स्वाभासं
न तत्स्वाभासं
दृश्यत्वात्
दृश्यत्वात्
एकसमये च
एकसमये च
उभयानवधारणम्
उभयानवधारणं
चित्तान्तरदृश्ये
चित्तान्तरदृश्ये
बुद्धिबुद्धेः
बुद्धिबुद्धेः
अप्रतिसङ्ग्रहः
अप्रतिसङ्ग्रहः
स्मृतिसङ्करश्च
स्मृतिसङ्करश्च
चितेः
चितेः
अप्रतिसङ्क्रमायाः
अप्रतिसङ्क्रमायाः
तदाकार
तदाकार
आपत्तौ
आपत्तौ
स्वबुद्धिसंवेदनं
स्वबुद्धिसंवेदनं
द्रष्टदृश्य
द्रष्टदृश्य
उपरक्तं चित्तम्
उपरक्तं चित्तं
सर्वार्थं
सर्वार्थं
तद्
तद्
असङ्ख्येय
असङ्ख्येय
वासनाभिः
वासनाभिः
चित्रम् अपि
चित्रम् अपि
परार्थं
परार्थं
संहत्यकारित्वात्
संहत्यकारित्वात्
विशेषदर्शिन
विशेषदर्शिन
आत्मभावभावना
आत्मभावभावना
विनिवृत्तिः
विनिवृत्तिः
तदा
तदा
विवेकनिम्नं
विवेकनिम्नं
कैवल्य
कैवल्य
प्राग्भारं
प्राग्भारं
चित्तं
चित्तं
तच्छिद्रेषु
तच्छिद्रेषु
प्रत्ययान्तराणि
प्रत्ययन्तराणि
प्रत्ययान्तराणि
प्रत्ययान्तराणि
संस्कारेभ्यः
संस्कारेभ्यः
हानमेषां
हानमेषां
क्लेशवदुक्तं
क्लेशवदुक्तं
प्रसङ्ख्याने अपि
प्रसङ्ख्याने अपि
Akusidasya
अकुसीदस्य
sarvadha
सर्वथा
vivekakyatehe
विवेकख्यातेः
dharmamekhasamadhihi
धर्ममेघसमाधिः
ततः
ततः
क्लेशकर्म निवृत्तिः
क्लेशकर्मनिवृत्तिः
तदा
तदा
सर्वावरण
सर्वावरणा
मलापेतस्य
मलापेतस्य
ज्ञानस्य
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 आनन्त्यात्
अनन्त्यात्
ज्ञेयम्
ज्ञेयम्
अल्पम्
अल्पं
ततः
ततः
कृतार्थानां
कृतार्थानां
परिणामक्रमसमाप्तिः
परिणामक्रमसमाप्तिः
गुणानां
गुणानां
क्षणप्रतियोगी
क्षणप्रतियोगी
परिणाम
परिणामा
अपरान्त
अपरान्त
निर्ग्राह्यः
निर्ग्राह्यः
क्रमः
क्रमः
पुरुषार्थशून्यानां
पुरुषार्थशून्यानां
गुणानां
गुणानां
प्रतिप्रसवः
प्रतिप्रसवः
कैवल्यं
कैवल्यं
स्वरूपप्रतिष्ठा वा
स्वरूपप्रतिष्ठा वा
चितिशक्तिरिति.
चितिशक्तिरिति.
That's it. So keep practicing it, and as if I'm correct, we will have few more sessions to just improve our chanting. There will not be any discussion, no boring, nothing. Just the chanting, and we'll have some sessions like that, so that we can chant it akshara shuddhi, you know. So otherwise, when we chant wrongly, our future students will also chant wrongly, and it will all that curse will come on our heads, isn't it? So okay. Okay, so last time we discussed five sutras. Patanjali said, since some of his students were interested, how to succeed in life using this Patanjali Yoga Sutra or this meditation techniques. So he said, excellence in life can be had by five different ways: Janma, Aushadhi, Mantra, Tapas, Samadhijaha. What is? Some people are by birth talented. Some people can get some drugs and get it done, and some people work hard 24/7 and get it to become excellent, tapaha. And some people using some mantras and focused work, or by repeating some mantras, they can excel in their life, like Tyagaraja Swami, who is one of the patrons of Carnatic music, isn't it? He used to chant. Somebody gave him, when his father passed away, somebody gave him a Rama mantra, and he used to chant it 10 lakh times in 24 hours, and that is how he became a Trimurti in music. You must know the story of sage Valmiki also, that illiterate robber who became great sage by chanting mantras. So mantra is very powerful. Don't get me wrong. So if you have a guru, go and meet him and get a mantra from him and start chanting it, and you will see the wonders. Okay. Janma Aushadhi mantra tabas samadhijaha siddhaya. Samadhi is your usual meditation practice. So five ways to get siddhis or excellence in the material world. And how do you transform from the useless average person to an extraordinary person? When your daily practice exceeds the limited necessary limit for a excellent person. So when you pass that limit, when your general qualifications exceed the necessary limit, you just skyrocket into a legend. Jatyantara parinamaha pragritya purat. When your effort exceeds the limit, you cross the threshold and become super saiyan, let's say. Okay. Nimittam aprayojagam prakritinam. He says, since as per our accepted theory, everything is permanent and everything is there. All the legendary powers that the world and the superstars are exhibiting, it is all distributed equally, because Prakriti is the same everywhere, isn't it? We have two permanent things, Prakriti and Purusha. And for every one of us, the same Prakriti, same body, same sense organs and 24 hours of time. So everything is same. So why did somebody else become legends? Because they just removed those difficulties or those hindrances, and they excelled, he says. So it is like a farmer unlocking the gates, floodgates, and the excellence will flow into you, isn't it? So life is the tribute, or success is the tribute that life pays to the daily excellence that you maintain. Okay. And you have to use your daily experiences to uh, you know motivate yourself. Nirmana chittani asmita matrata, your unique story you have to use to develop all these super talents. Okay. So super talents or your special talent is called nirmana chitta in this yoga sutra. Nirmana chitta means that which you develop, with your effort and samadhi and all that. So that special personality or that legendary you that you want to be is called a nirmana chitta. So that all those legendary powers that you want can be developed by your basic asmita, your unique story, as they say. And pravritti bhede prayojagam chittamegam anekesham. All that you can develop, it depends on your fundamental worldview, isn't it? So for that worldview, you have to dedicate your life. When I first became a Swami and when I joined the ashram, and one of the senior Swamis, he introduced me to our in where I came from in Kerala. The senior sponsor who was there, he was a retired superintendent of police. So he introduced me. The senior Swami introduced me that Swamiji, this boy is from, he's a technology analyst from Infosys. He has given up all that and come to the spiritual line and all that. And superintendent said, "What a foolish boy!" He said, "He's an utter idiot." He said, in my face, he told. So people have different viewpoints about life, isn't it? So you have to for but for the police superintendent, his worldview is that you have to earn some money and get successful in life and buy a big house and all that. That is success for him. But for some of us, that is not success. That especially since today cheating is also allowed, you can do some 4G scam or 2G scam and make plenty of money, isn't it? So making money is not that big or a big deal. So this kind of culturing ourselves into or getting spiritually enlightened, that is the big deal, he says. So for some different viewpoints are there, so you can choose whatever you want, he says. Okay. So pravritti bhede prayojagam chittam egam anekesham. All that you want to develop in life, that you have to cultivate from your basic personality, your basic worldview. And what is a basic worldview? Everything is wonderful. That is the basic worldview, isn't it? That is the basic worldview of all yogic sciences. Everything is okay. I am okay. Only if you start from there, then you can develop. Otherwise, nothing will happen, isn't it? So, fundamental worldview is very important. Chittam egam anegesham. Okay. And don't get caught up in the material sciences. You can get a PhD in yoga and all that, but if your worldview is miserable, you will still not smile, isn't it? So why so also why do I insist on this? Because in every classroom there will be some people who prefer to sit in the back bench. They don't smile. They are very serious people, and they don't like to come to the forefront and face the teaching and all that. You see, in every classroom, at least I can say my experience, my attention is not on the first benchers. My attention is always on the backbenchers who never smile and who are always serious. And because uh, it is they who are going to really benefit. I'm not blaming the others who are actually participating, but those people, they are really serious people, hardcore people. That is why they are going to benefit. And between you and me, I was also somebody like that. I never smiled. I never attend. I was so paranoid that I never attend phone calls from unknown numbers. I never go to any party. I sleep by 9 o'clock and all that. Completely antisocial person. But this yoga, this science has transformed me. And now I am able to interact with you people, isn't it? Earlier, addressing a crowd was a nightmare to me. In fact, I have made some horrible mistakes in college and all that. That we'll discuss later. But this science has made me transform into, at least sociable, isn't it? So it is from my experience that I'm saying that this yoga shastra is beneficial to all of us. So whoever doesn't smile and doesn't participate, my attention is always on them, because I see myself reflected in them. So they are going to be the future champions of this shastra. Okay, so let us use our basic asmita to develop ourselves, he says. Okay, so Swamiji, if I involve in yoga and all that, will I not become bounded again? That was the question. Patanjali says no. Why? Let us see the sixth sutra. Tatra dhyanajam anashayam, he says. So every habit, every action that we do, it will create some habits, isn't it? So if I do yoga and all that, if I one day if I cannot do, I become miserable. That is not the point. So you have to do yoga and all that in a meditative mode. You must know that I am Nitya Shuchi Sukha Atma. Then do it. Otherwise, you again yoga itself becomes a bondage too, isn't it? So this that is what differentiates you from the other so-called new schools of yoga. And you are fortunate enough to study Yoga Sutra from a traditional source, because other people don't have this theoretical basis. They only just stand on their nose, but they don't have this uh, theoretical basis. So you have to have that meditative space within you and then do. So when you do that, your habits will not become a problem, because you have the inner leisure to stand away and uh, handle your habits, he says. So habits are different types. So meditative habits will not hurt you, says Patanjali. Tatra dhyanajam anashayam. When you tatra means when you work in the world for material sciences or material excellence, tatra dhyanajam anashayam. That is your behavior made from meditative mode, dhyanaja, will not affect you. Anashayam, it doesn't create any more vasanas. Ashaya means samskara or not bad habits. Habits are what is causing our problem and not making us see our atma, isn't it? So those habits, dhyanajam anashayam, meditative practices will not give you any bad habits. So if you make it cup of tea meditatively, then that is a beautiful cup of tea, isn't it? So people will smile at you when they drink it. Otherwise, they throw it in your face, isn't it? So when you make it meditatively, it becomes a beautiful cup of tea. So tatra dhyanajam manashayam. So meditation for us, at least for you advanced teachers, it is not a on the mat process. All the time you are in meditation, isn't it? Otherwise, meditation is a once in a week exercise, and that is useless also. So meditation is not a on the mat; it is off the mat, and we are always in meditation. Okay, at least those who are serious about it. Okay, so meditative practice of whatever I do doesn't create any habits. Tatra dhyanajam anashayam. Ashayam means bad habits or unconscious behavior habits. So dhyanajam is anashayam. It doesn't create habits. Ashayam is habits. Anashayam, it doesn't create habit. Okay. Karma and okay. So habits is the problem. That is what you're saying. Yes. So habits are different types are there, and yogi's habits doesn't uh, count. He says it is not harmful. He says habits are four types. Okay, what are they? Good, bad, indifferent, and neutral, isn't it? Or I would say transcendental. That is, let's come to the seventh sutra. He says, karma shukla krishnam yoginas trividham itaresham, he says. Did we miss a sutra? Okay. Okay, so actions are four types. Good means in the yogic language, it is uh, shukla. That is, shukla means pure white, pure white. Shukla vastram, we say. So uh, actions are shuklam, pure or good habit, that which helps you in your sadhana. Krishnam, uh, that is bad or evil or dark. Krishna is, why is Krishna called Krishna? Because he's a dark boy, isn't it? Or blue, as the TV serials show it. So actions are bad, good, and indifferent. And last one is transcendental. Karma is Krishna, uh, dark or bad, Shukla, which is good or beneficial to your sadhana, Shukla Krishna, which are both, a mix of both, or you know, that which you do in your daily life. And ashukla akrishna, that is neither. Okay, so bad, good, both, and neither, if I may put it that way. Krishna shukla, Krishna shukla, and akrishna ashukla. I hope you got that. So yogis, or a meditative person's actions are ashukla agrishna, he says. That is, it doesn't create any bad effect or it doesn't create any good effect, because he knows that the upadhi, the body and mind, is functioning, and I am the witness to it, and I am chilling. So I have no problem, he says. So I am okay. That is the yogi's basic world view. So from that, whatever you do is okay, he says. Okay, so yogi may give one on your face, but it is a yogi slap. So there is no bad action in it, he says. Okay, I'm just pulling your leg. Okay, so because the yogi,
Last one you mentioned was Krishna Shukla means neither.
neither good, bad, both, and neither. So Krishna, Shukla, Shukla Krishna, and Ashukla Agrishna. I hope you got that. Okay. So when you are working from the meditative stand, what is the meditative standpoint? Nitya Shuji Sukha Atma, isn't it? That I am. That I am not the body, mind, but I am the witness of all these things. Nitya, I am always there. I am ever pure, not affected by all these things. And Shuchi, and I am okay. I am happy on my own, Sukha, and I am aware of all these things. Atma, Nitya Shuchi Sukha Atma. That you must always remember, isn't it? Whenever you are writing or dancing or whatever you do, you must remember that. Okay. So when you are constantly remembering that, you are always fresh, isn't it? Because it is the body and the mind that is always getting old and all that. I am ever fresh, isn't it? So that is why even when you're 95, you're still bubbling like a little baby. That is why yogis are always fresh and happy and cheerful and all that. Otherwise, but you who are in your 90, or maybe what you are 19, but still you are depressed, isn't it? Because why? It is you're operating from memory, your old habits, Krishna, Shukla, Agrishna, and all that. So yogi is always operating from his fresh inner spirit. He's not operating from memory. Okay. Okay. Tataha, then what happens? Tataha tadvipaka anugunanameva abhivyaktirvasananam. He says the other three rascals. What is that? Good, bad, and both. Those three are, they will create habits and they will bind you. He says tataha tadvipaka anugunanameva abhivyaktihi vasa. That is tataha then. That is, he's talking about the other three people who are good, bad, and indifferent. They tadaha tad vipaka, whatever they do, that will create some result, isn't it? Mature into some result. Vipaka anugunanameva, accordingly, according to what they did. And abhivyaktihi, it manifests. What will manifest? Those old habits will manifest. When you operate from memory, those old habits will again come to bother you. So that is why, as Shankaracharya says, every morning when you wake up, the first thing that you must do is not look your phone or go to the bathroom. Just sit there where you're in the bed and then remember this Atma first. Pratasmarami Hridi Samsvaradatmatattvam, he says. He says you have to first remember your fundamental being. Then you can manage, he says. I hope that makes sense to you. Okay. Okay. So, but the undisciplined mind immediately will go into WhatsApp status and blah, blah, and all. Then you will be miserable by 9 o'clock, isn't it? But first you take this initial step and then you can be fresh as a flower even by 9 p.m., he says. Okay. So that is the eighth sutra. So other people who don't bother to meditate or be meditative, they operate from memory and they are beings of habit. They again fall again and again into old habits, he says. Okay. Okay. So Patanjali is discussing this habit in a little detail. He says, Jati Desha Kala Vyavahitanam api Anantaryam Smriti Samskarayor Egarupatvat, he says. Like I told you last time, so this vasanas or these old habits, mental habits, they are creating the problem, isn't it? And you may, with some sadhana, you may control it, but and you may think that oh, I have finally mastered my vasana, but as soon as that conducive circumstances come, it will come back again. Somebody scolded you and you feel depressed again, isn't it? Or somebody praised you and you are on top of the world, and then somebody will push you back. So you don't know the depth of the habits. He says habits, even if they are separated by birth, jati, space, desha, and time, kala. Vyavahidana means separated. Even if they are separated by space, time, and birth, they will again manifest, he says. Anantaryam. Anantaryam means there is an unbroken channel of vasanas that you cannot normally perceive, and it will come back again when the conducive circumstances come back. Okay, so we never know. Smriti samskarayoho. Smriti means that old memory, or when a relative, when a familiar memory comes, that old habits will come. I told you, like that boy who always whistles when he sees beautiful girls. He may think that I conquered my vasana. Swamiji, I am okay now. But next time he walks on the road, when he sees a pretty girl, that some from the bottom of the belly, that whistle will come up to the lips, isn't it? Then he has to swallow it. So the world is necessary for you to train yourself to master your vasanas. That is why, as the new interpretation of yoga, there is new biology, new physics, new chemistry, and all that nowadays, isn't it? So the new yoga says you have to stay in the world to become a yogi, not run away into the Himalayan caves. I hope you understand the logic of it. So you need the world to realize your full potential. Don't run away from it. Okay. So the vasanas, they are not destructible. They have a very subtle form, and it is like that old Nokia 1100, isn't it? Even after that was your first phone that you got in school, and after 20 years you found it in the almari and open it, and then switch it on again, it again rings, isn't it? So it never breaks, isn't it? You can throw it in water, you can throw it in rock, whatever you do, it will still ring. Vasanas are also like that Nokia 1100, he says. It will never break. It is almost indestructible. So the only way to destroy it is by meditation, by remembering that Nitya Shuji Sukha Atma Aham. I am the one who is seeing this or experiencing this vasana also. Then only you can break away from it. Otherwise, you will always fall back into it. Okay. So as somebody, so this ninth sutra is the theory for love at first sight, isn't it? So how do you say that? Because how do you fall in love? Because when you meet the right person, or the person you think is right, you some connection, isn't it? When she also smiled and I also smiled, and sparks flied, and we started talking, and she also likes biryani and I also like biryani, and common interests came into play, and then we fall in love, isn't it? So what happens there? You have a certain collective in your, you have a certain idea about the ideal person, isn't it? She should be tall, or he should be tall, or he should have some muscles, or he should like these kind of topics. She should not be smart, otherwise she'll jump ahead of me. She should be a little stupid also, but then but she should not be smarter than me also. So like that, people have all this preference. I'm talking about all this from my friends who discuss all this with me secretly. I'm, because of you are my friends, I'm sharing all this. Okay, so you have certain preferences, which is your samskara or your vasana, and when you see a person who is somewhat mm, in correlation with that, then you agree with that person, isn't it? That is the basis of all relationships, whether it is love or friendship, isn't it? You and I are sitting here because we both love yoga, isn't it? Isn't it? So this is the secret of getting again and again bound into vasanas, because those vasanas are still there. You don't know it, and when you see a conducive circumstance in life, you jump into it, isn't it? And then you got married, and then you are miserable again. So then you find another person with another set of vasanas, then you get divorced and go there and all that. So this sutra is the fundamental for all your passions and all that. So you have to be a little careful with it. And there is also an alternative theory about love. Okay, so somebody said love is like making dosa, he says, because the first one will always break, he says. So you have to break away from this habit and uh, operate in this dhyanaja nitya shuji sukha atma, and then you will be okay, he says. Okay. Tasam, 10th sutra. Tasam anaditvam cha ashisho nityatvad. Swamiji, why do you say that vasanas are permanent, almost permanent? Why am I not able to get out of it, even after so much practice? He says, because those vasanas, do you know where it is sitting? It is sitting on the prime minister's lap, he says. Why is that? Ashisho nityatvad. Ashisha is your survival instinct. In Sanskrit, we call it desire to live. Ashisha, jijivisha, we call it. So, since in all births and in all circumstances, you want to survive, survival instinct is permanent for everybody, isn't it? So, so when you think that you are the body and you have survival instinct, so you tie all the other vasanas to that, and you think that, oh, I need this to survive, I need this person to survive, or I need this uh, condition to survive. So since your vasana is, I'm sorry, your uh, desire to live, your survival instinct is permanent, your vasanas also become permanent because they connect, you unconsciously connected them to the uh, survival instinct. So that is why he says tasam anaditam. Why are they permanent? Anadi means beginningless. You don't know when it began and when it is going to end. It almost seems permanent. Why is that? Ashisho nityatvad. Ashisha, your survival to preserve the body is permanent. That in every body you will have. Even if you are an enlightened person, when somebody comes you with a gun, you will back off, isn't it? Or you may try to grab the gun and shoot the other person also. But the need to preserve the body is there in everybody, he says, as we saw in the second chapter. So that is why vasanas are permanent. Okay. So to jump away from that, to escape ashisha also, you must see that you are a nitya shuchi sukha atma. Body keeps changing and I am a bodiless happy entity. So when you have that freedom, then you can gracefully age, isn't it? When your eyes don't see anymore and your uh, hearing doesn't work anymore, when you are 60 or 80 or 95, then you can be gracefully smiling and aging. Some rare aged people are there like that. Others are usually useless people who are always complaining and all that, and they write their will and all that. Only after I die, my children should get anything. Otherwise, I will be enjoying. Even in the 95th birthday, he's cursing his family, isn't it? So age has nothing to do with maturity, as I told you before. So how do you age gracefully? It is with this Nitya Shuji Sugha Atma. So this is your capital. So own it up and then live it every moment of your life, and then you can take benefit of it. So your this Atma, this definition of Atma should have a bearing on your day-to-day life, isn't it? If otherwise it is just a word, isn't it? So you, based on this, you should be able to smile more, you should be able to interact with people more, and you should be able to do your yoga better. So it should have a daily bearing on your life. Otherwise it is useless. Okay, so own it up, he says. Okay. Hetu bhala ashraya alambanaihi sangrahidatvad esham abhave tadabhavaha. He says, so my samsara, my suffering is sitting on a stool made up of 3 legs, he says. Okay, that my suffering is sitting there, and the stool on which, or the support, or has 3 pillars. What are they? Hetu, bhala, and ashraya alambanaihi. Okay. He says that my old habits, those old habits which I want to get rid of, they have 4 legs, he says. What is that? First one is hetu. Hetu is the cause of old habits. What is the cause? Cause is avidya. That is, you somehow forgot that you are Nitya Shuchi Sukha Atma, and you thought that you are the body. So the body needs all these things and people and all that. So that is the fundamental cause. Avidya Kshetram Uttaresham. That we saw in the second chapter, isn't it? So that is the fundamental problem. If you address that, then it can be removed, he says. Your vasanas can be removed. And so that is Hetu. That is the first pillar, fundamental pillar. And then what? Bhala. Bhala is that when you think that you're an unhappy person, then you uh, pursue other things in life, and then that will create some habits and memory, isn't it? So that memory is the effect of ignorance, isn't it? I hope that is okay to you. When you are ignorant, what is the effect? That is a cause, hetu, and what is the bhala? What is the effect? You think that you are always unhappy, and you collect a lot of memories, dependencies on people and events and all that. So that effect, a memory, is called bhala, and ashraya. Ashraya is the medium. Medium. Ashraya means our dependence, isn't it? What is what is the fundamental medium for all this samsara and all habits to function? It is the mind, isn't it? If mind is not there, you have no habits, isn't it? So mind is the ashrayam for all these bad habits or good habits or whatever it is. And also, for mind to function, you need a body, isn't it? That is alambanam. So ashrayam is mind, alambanam is body. So your problem, your old habits, that ugly being that is sitting and frowning at you, it is sitting on four legs. The stool has four legs. So how do I topple the stool? How do I push it away from me? You have to pull the leg, isn't it? Which leg can you pull? Body you cannot remove, mind you cannot remove, and old memories you cannot remove, isn't it? So the only leg that you can pull is your ignorance, isn't it? Avidya. If you remove the avidya, the whole thing will collapse, he says. Like in supermarkets, they when some offer is there, they keep all these bottles beautifully arranged in like a big structure, isn't it? And the rascal, some children will come and he wants the bottom one only. He will not take from the top. He will always take from the bottom, and the whole thing collapses, isn't it? In the same way, the ignorance is that leg that you have to pull. Then the whole thing collapses. So you once you believe, I wouldn't say believe. Once you see that nitya shuji sukha atma aham, then you can easily get rid of all this nonsense, he says. So that is why you become cheerful and social and amicable and all that. Otherwise, you sit in a corner like a question mark. Okay. Atita anagatam swarupato asti advabheda dharmanam. Okay. He says, Atita okay. So for an okay, so my past experiences is what is causing all these problems, isn't it? So my past is a problem. He says, Atit. So, but Patanjali, for Patanjali, Prakriti is real, isn't it? So matter and consciousness both are real. So your past is not something that is an idea that you can wish away, isn't it? It really happened to you, and it is sitting there. Of course, it is really not sitting there because it is only sitting in your head, but it is sitting in your head, he says. So past is something real, and future is also something real that you can really build, he says. Atita anagatam swarupato asti. Swarupa means it is real. Swarupato asti. So Patanjali is a very practical person. He not like other psychologists or Vedantins who say that, oh, it is all mithya and you don't have to worry about it. No, Patanjali is a practical person. He says your past is real and your future is also real because they are both prakriti and you can work on it, he says. Atita anagadam swarupato asti. And advabheda dharmanam. Advabhedam means it is all differentiated by experience. What do you mean by that? You see, your experience is different from my experience, isn't it? Your story, yours is a unique and beautiful story. So is mine. So people experience their past and future differently. So also this is one fundamental principle of Sankhya. Sankhya has certain fundamental principles. Okay, one is that permanent Prakriti and Purusha are permanent. That is one fundamental principle. Some 9 principles are there. You can Google it and find out. So these fundamental assumptions are there in Sankhya theory. And the other one is Purusha Bahutvam. That is, you and I are experientially different. Your experience is unique. My experience is unique. There are multiple Purushas. Like you are a permanent being floating in a sea of matter, and I am also a permanent being floating in another sea of matter, not another sea, the whole sea, and we are all like fish, interacting in an ocean of matter, isn't it? So all our experiences are unique. That is one fundamental assumption of Sankhya. When it comes to Advaita Vedanta, it is different, but forget that. So right now your experience is unique and you have to work on it, he says. Swarupato asti. So your past and future are all adita means past, anagata means that which has not come, future. That both are real. Swarupato asti. That we will question it later, but right now it is real, and you have to work with that, he says. Addu bhedata, because our experiences are different. Dharmana. Dharma dharma means experience. Dharma has many meanings, but here it means experience. Bhedat dharmanam. All our experiences are different, isn't it? What did you have for breakfast or tea? I didn't have that. Our experiences are different, isn't it? That is one basic assumption about life. So our experiences are different. So our past and our future are all different, and they are sitting there as real objects. So we have to work on it. Okay. Te vyakta sukshmaha gunatmanaha. 13th sutra. Te means your past and future experiences. They vyakta sukshmaha gunatmanaha. He says, though you can experience them and they are sitting in your head. It is not sitting outside, isn't it? It is not sitting like a phone or a water bottle. It is just in your head. That also is an advantage. So your past experience is just in your head. You don't have to worry about it in reality. But for you, it is a headache. That I agree. So it is sukshma and it is vyakta. It is really perceptible and it is subtle. But he says, gunatmanaha, it is also made up of matter. There are only two things I told you. I'm telling it again and again. One is you who are knowing matter, and then there is matter. So if you are not your memory, you are the one who is seeing memory. So that memory is also dead inert thing, isn't it? Isn't it? I hope those of who are awake, I hope you're getting me.
Got
So
confused.
okay. So okay. What is the basic theory? Prakriti and Purusha, you and dead inert matter. That's all there is in the universe, isn't it? I told you, we are using the Sankhya system, not modern science. In this system that we are aspiring to master, there are only two things, matter and consciousness. You are conscious, hopefully. So if you are conscious, your memory is floating in your awareness, isn't it? Who is aware of the memory? Your memory, I am not aware of it. You are aware of it, isn't it? Isn't it? So your memory is floating in your consciousness, isn't it? Is that okay? So if I am the conscious living entity and that thing is just sitting there or floating or whatever it is, so it must be a dead inert thing, isn't it? Because I am the source of life and that is just a object that I am seeing. Of course, you are not seeing it as a tangible thing like a book or a pen, but you are able to see it, isn't it? Or you are able to know it, isn't it? So if I am the source of knowing and I am the knower and the memory is something that is known, so that memory is actually a dead thing. It has no power over you. That is a little, you have to reflect on it and see. So what is
Swamiji,
the...
but we are also saying that you should also be aware of your past. You should also be aware of what your doings
Yes,
are.
exactly. So what I'm saying, see, this is for the, I would say this is for the depressed people. Okay, this sutra. So you have to first get out of the problem to solve the problem, isn't it? As long as you're in the problem, you sweat and you never solve the problem. So once you are out of the problem, you can solve it, isn't it? So once you're away from the memory, then you can, oh, this is my memory, and so this is how I should act, this is how I should eat, and this is how I should work out, and you can manage it, isn't it? But right now, I am fat, I am bald, I am all that. You're sitting inside the memory and crying, isn't it? First, you have to get out of it. How do you get out of it? You should know that I am different from it. Why do you say that? Because I am able to see the memory and I am the source of knowing, isn't it? I am knowing it. The very fact that I am knowing it proves that you are away from it, isn't it? I have not thought like that, but you start thinking like that. Okay. So once you're out of it, then you can manage it. So that is what Patanjali is trying to bring you to. Vyakta sukshmaha gunatmanaha. It is dead inert matter, gunas. Then you can manage it, he says. It is a dead piece of matter. Is that okay? Okay. How we manage it, that we'll figure out later. Don't worry.
When you're telling Swamiji, it makes sense and
It makes sense.
it
Yes.
seems
But you have to practice it
logical.
also, isn't it? So
After 5 minutes, you'll be like again back.
So, right. Of course, that happens to me also. I'm not saying that I am also, always on cloud nine. But the thing is, as soon as you see that it is bothering you, then you must remember that what is the truth? Nitya Shuchi Sugha Atma, isn't it? So happiness is the truth. So this must be something false. So get out of it, he says. So that is one thing that I always tell my other students in Vedanta class, that truth is happiness. Happiness is the truth that the scriptures are teaching us. So whenever something bad happens, or whenever there is a evil or a sad memory comes to you, you should immediately stamp it that it is not real. Why is that? Because happiness is reality, isn't it? You check your experience. When your parent or when somebody who you respect and love, they curse you that you will never make it in life, how do you feel? You feel bad or do you feel good? You feel bad, isn't it? When somebody who we love and respect, they curse us, we feel bad, isn't it? Why do we feel bad? Because it is not true. Because deep down inside, you know that you are a wonderful person, and if given a proper chance that you will explore and express your potential, you know it to be true. But when somebody else negates it with their anger and all that, you feel bad because you something you know to be true, somebody else is saying it is not true. That is why you feel bad. So truth is happiness, I tell you. So any happy experience is truth, I would say. When you are happy, you are nearer to truth. And when somebody blesses you, when you fall at the feet of your parents, at least once in a year you must do it, and they tell you that you are a wonderful boy or girl, and you will be successful in life. How do you feel? You feel wonderful, isn't it? You feel that everything is okay. Why do you feel that? Because it is somewhere, it is in the depth of your heart, you know it is true, isn't it? You are supposed to be successful in life. You are supposed to be wonderful and creative and cheerful and all that. So that is something that, though you don't say it all the time, you deeply believe in your heart. And when somebody says it, you agree with it, isn't it? That is why when somebody says that you are wonderful, you fall in love with that person. Though that person is a useless person, when they agree with what you believe sincerely, you accommodate them, isn't it? So that there is a certain truth into others may not see it. Your parents will say, "Yo, what do you see in that person?" But you will say, "No, no, daddy, you have to see it from my eyes." Why do you say that? Because for you, it is a truthful experience, isn't it? So what I'm saying is, Nitya Shuchi Sukha Atma. Always keep chanting that, and happiness is truth. And whatever gives you happiness is truth, and whatever depresses you is false. So any memory or anything that depresses you comes to you, immediately throw it off. As Swami Vivekananda used to say, whatever weakens you, reject it like poison, he says. Okay, so keep that in that background shruti has to always run in your mind. Okay. Okay, so everything that is bothering you is dead, inert matter. Okay, it is. If I slap you right in the face with enough force, that memory will go off, isn't it? Some people forget it when they get hit on the head. You know that, isn't it? So if I give one on your head, bad memory will go. So why did it go? Because it is a dead inert thing. Okay. Vyakta sukshmaha gunatmanaha. I don't think we'll be able to finish this chapter in this session, but let's go with one more sutra and then we'll finish. Parinama ekatvad vastu tattvam, he says. Okay, so he says, um, okay, so everything that you experience in life, it is Patanjali reduces it to dead inert matter, prakriti, isn't it? So everything that is happening, whether it is in the mind or the body, it is all prakriti, he says. Parinama egatvad vastu tattva. Vastu tattva means tattva means the essential fundamental quantity, which is prakriti. So since everything is changing, you need a changeless substratum for change to happen, isn't it? Isn't it? You to make a pot or a coffee mug or flower vase, you need something fundamental, which is clay, isn't it? Only if you have clay, you can make all these different things. So clay is always, even when the pot is pot and coffee mug is a coffee mug, it is still clay, is still clay. You just gave it a shape and calling it coffee mug. Clay is still clay, isn't it? In the same way, you need a fundamental substratum for all these changes to happen. So everything is fundamentally matter. That is what Patanjali is trying to say. Parinama egatwada, since everything is happening, all the changes are happening in one fundamental substratum, that is that permanent prakriti. Don't worry about it. Matter doesn't matter. That is the message of the sutra. Okay. And there are certain Buddhist arguments against this argument that we will see in the next class. And that is, the Buddhists say that the world is not real. That is what the Buddhists say. And whatever you see, it is just a flickering. When the mind is flickering, you just see it, because when you inquire it, you don't see it, isn't it? What you call as a table, it is just a piece of wood, isn't it? If you inquire into that, it is just a assemblage of wood, isn't it? There is nothing really called a table. We just put some wood together, isn't it? But in the same way, if you analyze wood, it is just carbon and silicon and phosphorus, isn't it? So wood is also not there. So if you analyze like that, nothing is there, he says. So but that is a dangerous philosophy. Well, how and why, we will see next time. Patanjali is proving that philosophy wrong and proving that you are the source of happiness. That we will see next time. If there is any question, we can discuss in 2 minutes and we'll conclude.